Now I'm going to do it. This video I'm pruning my cork bark Chinese elm bonsai. The first step, which we call the cleaning phase, involves going through the tree and looking for any really obvious bits of growth or unwanted branches that we can cut off with very little thought. Anything that's growing down or shaded out is going to be very weak. This branch is growing back in towards the trunk and doesn't give me a very nice line. There are 4 pieces coming from this junction. It's going to cause an ugly knuckle to form there. As it's also the lower down piece, I'm going to remove this one. This branch is also coming from the same knuckle. It's very straight and doesn't have much going for it. So I've left one on this side and these two. I don't know for sure if I'll need them, so I'm going to leave them be for now. I'm going to prune out these small pieces. They're definitely not needed. There's some more here inside this crutch and outside as well. As I'm going through this process, I'm constantly asking myself, am I sure I don't need this? If I cut it off, is there something nearby that I can use if I change my mind? Is it near something else which is more valuable, that looks nicer or is better positioned? How I choose to proceed with this branch is going to depend on the choices that I make in the other areas and how that impacts the design. And because I don't know what I'm doing in the other areas yet, I can't make the decision here. A little bit of discipline is required in this phase, not to go too mad and cut everything off and strip yourself of all the choices in the next step when we come to actually make the hard decisions. Now we've got the cleaning out the way, it's time to actually impart a little bit of style into the choices that we're making. Now, one of my observations about this trunk is that it's slow to taper and it's got some nice movement to it. So I really want to carry that theme through to the branches, and I want longer flowing branches. If the tree was tapering to a point and was much stronger and firmly planted in the pot, then I'd probably look to create shorter, stubbier branches. But because we've got this nice line, I want to try and emphasize that with the branches. So I do want to keep this branch. If this branch wasn't here, we'd have quite a lot of empty space in this area. But I do think it's far too congested and stubby as it currently stands. We've got a very strong branch up here, so it does make me wonder if I need this thin piece here, but I'll leave that there for the time being. We've got a little branch around the back here, that's going to be dead useful. We've got this one off, we've got a couple here off to the side to choose from. I'm choosing to remove this upper piece because it's on roughly the same level as this piece and that one round the back, so that's a good choice to make, I think. I do like the way that this piece is coming forward a bit, and I like its upward orientation, so I think I might keep that one. As a result, I'm going to prune this piece away because we don't need two so close together. I'm going to remove this thin piece on the inside because now I know that I'm going for longer branches. I definitely don't need that. Now I like the length of this, but we have got an ugly knuckle forming just there, so I am in fact going to remove this branch as well. So now we've got a nice depth piece here, so I'll remove this lower piece, and that gives us plenty to work with on this section. For the length, I do like it quite long, and I cut back the length to 2 separate pieces, like so. This bit down the back here, it's quite straight and long, so it'd be nice to get a bit of movement and taper into that section. So I'm going to cut back to this one small piece here and this piece here. And I like the way it divides here and then comes here. So it's creating a nice alternating pattern. There's just a small guy on here that I don't want. And then out on the tip here, I am going to cut back to 1, 2 there, like so. I am going to drop that back to there just to take some of the length out so it's not all the same length. I'll cut back to there. The last decision that I've got left to make on this particular branch is what length to cut this back to. Now I notice I've got quite an ugly bulge here. That doesn't look very attractive, so it's quite easy for me to just come in and cut back. We don't want to end up with a tree that's completely flat and has no depth. And that's why I want to keep this branch on the tree, because I can use it to create depth as it comes out to the background. And so just to make a couple of decisions on this particular branch, we've got a dead stub on the tip there. We've got a really tiny wispy piece on the inside. I'll probably use some wire to move it in this direction. So I am going to just knock this piece off as well. This small weak branch and this small weak branch, I'm not sure if I'm going to use them in the design, but they're too small and weak to prune. If I'm going to use them, they need to get stronger, and to do that they just need to be left to grow, so I won't cut anything off these two. Now let's look at this branch. So I've already decided that I want to emphasise the flowing nature of the branches and I want them a little bit longer. I'll take that one off. A couple of small dead bits on the inside of this particular branch. And I'm also going to remove this piece to really emphasise the length that we've got here. Although I want the length, this is too long as it stands at the moment, so I'm going to cut back to a nice viable length that's got some buds. This guy's alright, but this one's a bit on the long side. So let's see now. So we've got a very tiny one, then we've got 1, 2, so we'll cut back to there. And then we've got a tiny one, 1, 2. Next, as we work up the tree, is this thicker branch. I've just noticed that this branch here is completely dead. Didn't see that in the cleaning phase. This is the next branch that we're going to look at now, and this is the big one. We've got a multitude of branches coming from this point. If I leave all of those in place, it's going to get thick, cause a knuckle, and it's just going to look really ugly. It's just going to break the flow in the line. So the first move I want to make is to remove this vertical piece. I really don't like the way it's creating a Y shape that looks like a slingshot here. I also think it looks too symmetrical. Here we come in with my branch pruners. Here we go. That's really improved this area greatly in my opinion, but we've still got too many branches coming from this point. So the next thing I'm looking at is this thicker piece that's coming straight out. It's forming a continued line with the original primary branch that it's coming from. It's pretty straight and taperless, so I think I'm actually going to take this entire thicker piece out as well, and then I'll be able to decide which of these pieces I keep and which I remove. Yeah, I think that's the right decision. Okay, just going to come in. It's a little bit awkward. Engage those jaws, and here we go. So this one's coming out kind of straight, and it's not particularly interesting. It's also in an area where I've got other options in that same direction. So I'm going to remove that one first. I'm going to keep this piece because it's got a nice change of direction. And then I'm going to keep this stronger piece and cut the weaker one off. So this branch is way longer than I need it. I think if it was somewhere around this length, that would be perfect. And on the end, we've got quite a strong shoot. We've got a weaker shoot here. If I pop this strong shoot off and then trim back that stub, that's going to give us two nice tertiary pieces to work with. On the inside here you can see there's some very tiny buds. Now they're not reliable on elms, so when I prune back these finer pieces, I'm going to ignore those. Even that tiny one there I'm going to ignore, and I'm going to say 1, 2, and I cut back to that second bud. And then later on in the year, we'll come back and look what has developed and what hasn't, and if necessary, prune back to 2 here. With this branch coming back towards the trunk, I'd quite like to move it out in that direction. And we've got this piece that's continuing towards the trunk, and this small piece is in much better position to start moving away from the trunk. So I'm going to use a technique called directional pruning to correct that. So directional pruning is simply cutting back to a bud or a branch that's heading in the most favourable direction, which is this piece in this example. This piece here in the upper region is getting quite thick. It's actually disturbing the flow of the trunk line. Your eye wants to follow this piece rather than this beautiful curve and transition of taper that we've got. Boop. And I'm going to put a bit of wound sealer on there. Oh, just look at the way the trunk flows now. Look at that line. Oh my goodness. Mwah. Love that. I've been dying to cut that thing off. When you need to strengthen the lower branches, it's important to cut back the upper branches harder so that they're shorter than the lower branches are. Now I'm definitely developing these lower branches. They're nowhere near what I'd like them to be. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. Where we've removed that heavy branch, I'm going to use this one to fill the space that's been left behind. But because it's higher up on the tree, I am going to prune it back. So it's pretty straight all the way out here, and I've got something to cut back to there. So I'll just take that end off. I'll also look for some buds on this to cut back to. There we go. So we've got some little ones on there. They may not develop, so I'll cut back to there. This branch is a little bit longer than I'd like it to be, and it's not very well tapered. So I'm going to look for 2 pieces to cut back to. I've got a small, nice fine piece here, and I've got this piece here. So I'll cut back to leave those 2 in place. Just out here we've got a couple of really beautiful fine pieces that I'm going to cut back to. Stunning little branch. You might not want to be pruning your tree quite as hard as I am, and that's fine, but I'm really making some sound, logical, structural decisions here, so I've got no worries at all that I'm benefiting the tree in the long run. Deciduous bonsai is a case of 1 step back, 2 steps forward, and that's exactly what I'm doing here today. It might look drastic, but it's pretty routine. And this next piece is a good example of that. Here we've got somewhere I pruned in the last year or 2, and this vertical piece has really started to build up some momentum. And because it's a little bit congested in this area, I'm going to prune that back to a really nice fine piece. I'm going to cut back to see where we've got some buds. So we've got some right on the inside there, just in here. There we go. Boom. Just real quick on this branch, I'm going to pop that off, cut back to 2 buds. I'll leave that piece a bit longer with 3 buds. And with this upper piece gaining a bit of strength, I'm going to cut back reasonably hard to there. That piece to there. With a bit of wire, that can be our apex. Let's just cut back to a couple of buds on these pieces as well. Up here, it's like I said, up here it's important to prune even the finer pieces, otherwise they'll just absolutely rocket off in the spring, leaving the branches down below behind. With your trees as a beginner, you might choose not to go quite as drastic as I've gone here, but hopefully you can see that all of the decisions that I've made have good, well, maybe not good, have at least some justification behind them. I'm not just hacking at this tree, I'm making informed decisions. My question for you is, what do you think I should do about this branch? Do you think I should cut it off? It's getting a bit thick, it's pretty straight, and there is this one here behind it. What do you reckon? Let me know. Right, it's a couple of weeks later now, and I'm going to put some wire on this tree. Lay out these branches a bit more beautifuler. Beautifuler? A bit more attractively. I am actually going to cut this piece back after all, and also I've just decided that this is coming off. Just going to take this one back to some buds. There we go, that's looking a bit better. Now I don't know about you, but I think the apical region needs looking at now. I think this is coming, I don't know, too far forwards. It's kind of too thick for the apex. Yeah, and also this piece off to the side here. Where's that going? It's just disappearing off into the distance now. I reckon this is our new apex. What do you think? I'm going to do it. Here we go. Yes, sir. I wasn't planning on wiring this piece or this piece, but if I don't, they'll look weird and then someone will say it looks ugly. Right, where's the front? Somewhere in there. Cork bark elm, done.